Hello, I am Nancy Reggie. Today this video is recorded under the auspices of B-Ghud, and as the main speaker we have Mr. Abraham Burgess here. Today we will be talking about brain drain. As brain drain is increasing on a daily basis, what is your opinion regarding it, sir?
Well, brain drain has caused a serious problem to our country and is causing it, and we're sorry, and will cause it for a period to come yet. It has got some long route, in fact, a bit of a history, and it is primarily to do with the fact that we needed to educate our youngsters who are growing up, and at the end of the education, they naturally expected to have jobs, and that was not available at that time because our manufacturing had not developed, and our various industries were left damaged and destroyed and wrecked and looted before independence. So everything had to be built from the beginning. And it was not easy for people to survive after having paid considerable amount of monies in order to learn and then to advance their education into universities and to learn medicine and engineering, which were the two main subjects in those days, you see.
Point.
They were in demand greatly for the country,
Exactly.
and so we had to produce them. But having produced them, the question was, do we have enough capacity, enough hospitals to actually absorb all of them? Do we have the standard for it? Will they be stunted by their education because we don't have the right equipment? And do we have enough engineering jobs? Well, in one way or the other, youngsters were forced to, by their parents, to take up these professions because at least they provided the basic necessity for a family and to go forward.
Okay.
But while they did not have the jobs available within the state, many of them found jobs in other states. But more than that, they decided to apply to go abroad.
So, do you think one reason behind it is because the old age people, even though they are 60s, they are employed and the youth doesn't find a job?
Well, you see, that comes about where there isn't an alternative manufacturing unit or many manufacturing units to absorb the youngsters. And then clearly it has a limiting effect because it's like a boulder with water flowing over there. It can't go further unless the boulder is removed. So, yes, and don't forget in those days, the retirement age and the expected age of life was far shorter. And so we had, I believe we had a retirement age of 55,
To five.
which today is very young still, okay? But more importantly, what happened was uh, people started going out of India and succeeding in places like America and Britain and Europe, primarily because they were also just out of the war and they had numerous vacancies because they lost a lot of soldiers, many of whom were also doctors and field assistants who helped out in the ambulance services and so on and so forth. And of course, there was a development project in the UK and America because they had the monies for it, most of which were obtained through their colonies. And so they were able to build these hospitals, but to staff them, they needed people from outside. And in those days, no flab was required, no particular criteria was required. They just wanted people who could qualify and look after and serve the public as doctors and, in some cases, engineers also.
So, don't you think another reason for brain drain is because of the remuneration from other countries?
Yes, you see, that is only, in a way, a secondary because you want to get a job to start getting remuneration.
Point.
So the first point of call or first port of call is a job.
Okay.
and then you will start off by getting less than your colleagues do, until you realize, hello, this ball game is not fair. It's not an equal or level playing field. So you start making noises, and besides that, by your talent, by your commitment, you get recognized automatically and get promoted. And today, you'll find that most of our doctors, most of our engineers, most of our scientists have all transpassed the level at which they entered the profession when their wages were pretty average, and they are now earning huge amounts of monies. Okay, the difficulty there was that it wasn't that the parents then wanted to come or did not want to come back to India. I think every one of them had a deep sentiment and love for India, and still do. But the trouble was that they had to get their children educated in the countries to which they had migrated. And excepting some who decided to send their children to India, and that was an expensive affair. So, with free education in those countries and a different quality of education, especially in English, they kept their children there. And they got used to it. The children got used to it. They got developed friendships. They got used to the environment. They got used to a different set of values. And they had to overcome the values of the outside world from the values at home and so on, which they adjusted to equally with the languages. But we talk about brain drain. The country that suffered all this was India. We spent the money, we spent the training time, we spent our institutions, and we spent monies on training them, not just for the immediate purpose, but for some future purposes also. And all of which talent we lost out on, which was really dreadful. Even today we are losing out because of various events that have stopped the demand part of employment, and then unemployment had risen. It is now coming down because we are increasing our manufacturing base. Our infrastructure has increased considerably. We are keeping a tight financial look at matters. Even though there is the fear of inflation, we are able to get better supplies. We are able to provide from the source of production to the demand, to where the demand of the products go, in such a way that it is much earlier, much quicker, much more efficient, and sometimes cost saving also. But the fact is still, can we afford to keep on losing good quality brains, good quality people abroad to countries who are exploiting them? And even though one can argue that they are not exploiting them, they're paying them the right wages. Well, they're exploiting us. And then the question arises, whose fault is it? It is ours. It is ours. The solution lies with us. If we can teach our children, come on, here are jobs available to you. Do you think even 1% of our children would go abroad? Very unlikely.
But there are situations, as I mentioned before, after having a high level of education, comparing yourself with other people around the world receiving higher salary than you do at present.
Yes, but you see, that comes along at a huge price of social changes. Taking your family there, suffering from racial abuse, trying to prove yourself twice over to be accepted, okay, and so on, which you don't have to do over here. And you're replanting yourself from this environment where you've got the security of family, you've got the security of your own country, you've got every right in that country, in our country, which even though you might claim to have a citizenship in those countries, they do not necessarily treat you equally. Okay? So for those who are aware of it and have experienced it, they know where their choices will be, but they have no choice at the moment. They had no choice at the time they made the decision but to go abroad. And today we have decided to attract more people from outside to come and learn in India, which is developing considerably. And also there has been a recent announcement by the Prime Minister that there will be more university and more medical schools and more engineering colleges in each district. So that would absorb the demand that is there from the students who come out into the education market and into the job market. Okay, I think that is what covers basically the fundamental idea of brain drain.
Exactly.
Okay, thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
Namaskar.